Here's Brody Brazil.
Well, this has quickly become one of the biggest trends surrounding MLB stadiums, literally within the last 5 to 10 years. And it doesn't even really matter if we're talking about new construction or an existing stadium. Big league teams want ballpark villages. And this video specifically is why every MLB team right now either has or wants to get something like the Battery, what they have in Atlanta surrounding Truist Park. This is basically a real estate development that surrounds the ballpark, actually more in the right field area, but it's incorporated with the ballpark. It's a part of it, and it's owned by the Atlanta Braves. More on the Braves side of this in just a second, but first let's talk about the Battery. I'm sure you're probably familiar, but let's catch you up on all the big details to begin here. It's co-located and open with the ballpark and is owned by the team. It's about 10 miles northwest of downtown Atlanta, so basically this is like its own downtown. This is not like they put this in an urban core location. This is out a bit in the suburbs, not too far, but it's kind of its own self-standing thing, including retail and restaurants and the headquarters of Comcast, who moved into a 9-story building, and a deal they struck with the Omni Hotel to put up another big building out there. There's something called the Coca-Cola Roxy Theater, which is basically a nod to the Roxy, but it's an indoor performing arts venue, basically like a concert hall. There's also 531 residents, all of this, the residences, on 75 acres in this site next to Truist Park. So they fit a lot into a small area. They kind of made it an urban core, just not in the downtown Atlanta urban core. And so the Battery has been very popular. Fans know about it. Oh, but big league teams know a lot about it because they're making a lot of money off of this. And there's one thing we can say about the Atlanta Braves. Fans will complain about respective ownerships across Major League Baseball. Well, guess what? In Atlanta, the fans are the owners. This is a baseball team that a couple years ago became publicly traded. That's right. You can buy stock in the Atlanta Braves. You can own the Atlanta Braves. I'm not sure everybody was even aware of that. A handful of years ago, in the summer of 23, Liberty Media spun off the team into its own separate company. That team, Atlanta Braves Holdings Incorporated, went public on July 19th, 2023. Their symbols are BATRA and BATRK if you're interested in checking out how those stocks are doing. By the way, they became the second ever team to be publicly traded. Cleveland in the late 90s had, I think, a quick run on the NASDAQ, if I remember that correctly. But right now, the Atlanta Braves are the only current Major League team, not professional sports team, but the only current Major League Baseball team to be publicly traded. A lot of people wonder, is this the way to do it? Is this the wave of the future? We'll put those questions aside for a second, but what we do want to kind of point out here is that because they're publicly traded, they need to have earnings reports. They need to come out and disclose information about how their business is doing. This is not something that every other Major League Baseball team has to do or would want to do. And Joe Pompliano, who, by the way, does a great job across all the social platforms, but I found this on his Substack titled Huddle Up. That's the name of his Substack. He covers this entirely. In fact, his article goes way into detail. It is a paid subscription, but I'm only going to take here the parts that are free to the public, but obviously make a huge impact here in telling the story. Here's what Joe says. Atlanta's headline numbers are impressive. Now, this is just the business. This is just the nature of Braves baseball. $312 million in quarterly revenue, up 10% from that same period in 2024. The team is generating more income from tickets, concessions, parking, and sponsorships, despite fewer fans attending games in 2025. Okay, so this is just run-of-the-mill business. These are all the things you would expect, right? Like typical stuff that teams have been working with for decades. Tickets, concessions, parking, and sponsorships. Not real estate, right? This is kind of a relatively new venture of real estate. It used to be, hey, you own the stadium, you own the merchandising, you can sell tickets, all those things are great. Teams weren't really in the real estate game yet, like they absolutely are now. And it's not just owning the ballpark, it's owning the ballpark and the entire neighborhood. But buried beneath the headlines is Atlanta's secret weapon, the Battery. The 75-acre mixed-use development surrounding Truist Park has become a cash cow for the MLB franchise. 9 million people visited the Battery in Atlanta last year. I just want to stop for a second. Usually big league teams, if they have a good summer, is it like 3+ million fans? And they say, hey, thank you to our 3 million fans. We're talking 3 times that. 9 million people visiting the Battery last year, spending an average of nearly 3 hours. So they're not just coming for dinner, they're staying for a while. Obviously, going to a game is part of it, maybe in the summer months, but clearly this area is doing quite well in the winter too. If you're drawing in 9 million, it's not just happening during baseball season. 9 million people visited the Battery in Atlanta last year, 3 hours on average spending time on the property. Additionally, 21% of these visitors came from out of state, not even from Georgia, helping the Battery generate $67.3 million in revenue last year alone. So you're the baseball team, and you lose money every year on paying players. That's a high part of operating the team is player payroll. And the valuation of your team, it is kind of like owning property. The valuation goes up big time over the long term. That very much appreciates. But you're trying along the way to make money where you can off merchandising, off television revenue, off ticket sales. This is a brand new stream of cash that, how many other teams have something like this? The St. Louis Cardinals do. The Chicago Cubs do with their new development surrounding Wrigley Field. Some teams do. A majority of them don't. Oh, but they will attempt to get to this point because, as Joe points out, this is the blueprint for how every modern American sports franchise will make money in the future. And I've got to stop here because we're recording this in August of 2025, and maybe you're watching this in August of 2035. I believe this to be absolutely true. This is the blueprint for how every modern American sports franchise will make money in the future. Traditionally, sports teams are high revenue, high expense, like paying the players, enterprises where success on the field often comes at the expense of slimmer profit margins, right? So you're not going to make as much in the short term because you got to spend on players and hope that the valuation goes up and you increase your value over time. But by expanding into real estate, the Braves have created a unique flywheel with advantageous lease agreements, low costs, and high profit margins. Example, 70%. Look how well real estate is doing, and not to mention how it's doing on a year-to-year basis, but you own the property, and the value of the property goes up. So if you ever wanted to sell that off, sell off the Battery for $5 billion. Guess what? You just got $5 billion of cash 20 years down the road. The real estate in itself is an investment, not just a money producer right now. Even better, the Atlanta Braves get to keep all of this money to themselves because mixed-use developments are not subject to MLB's revenue-sharing protocols. That's something I wasn't even thinking about or necessarily aware of. I credit Joe for bringing this up. If you make too much money, if you spend too much money and you're subject to the competitive balance tax and you've got to pay it off to other teams that don't spend as much money. But all of this is independent. The Braves can make all of this money and keep it to themselves. There's not revenue sharing for making this money off the real estate. Think about that. And I'm sure the owners penciled that into their arrangements and their agreements specifically so that every team can do this and only worry about themselves and not having to share. This is something every sports fan around the world should care about. And that's why I've been telling this story for several years now as I've started to notice this trend. Every sports fan around the world should care about, because if your favorite team isn't already building out a mixed-use development, it will be soon. And look, there are some benefits to this. For fans, if you're a Braves fan, let's stop right here. To be clear, Truist Park, when it opened, was paid for both privately and publicly. So I'm not talking about the stadium here, that's separate. I'm talking about just the Battery that was entirely privately funded by the Braves ownership. At that time, it was Liberty Media. So we got to look at the big picture here. The Braves paid for this. It is an enhancement to fans. It is an enhancement to the local neighborhood surrounding the ballpark. So for all intents and purposes, this is a good thing for everybody, and it's a great thing for the sports teams. This is not a sinister case of asking for public funding to get this done and then reaping all the benefits. The Braves invested in this. It was their idea. They kind of took the financial risk of taking on this project, and now they're benefiting from it. Good for them, and you know what? Good for the fans that get to enjoy this real community-type atmosphere surrounding their ballpark. Let's get to the takeaways here. Now, I mentioned that every other team wants one of these. There are some who are closer to that goal than others, like the Mets, who want to do something similar at Citi Field outside the parking lots of the stadium. The Royals, when they build a new stadium, I guarantee it's going to have some type of ballpark village atmosphere surrounding it. The Red Sox in Fenway Park, I know you're saying, well, wait, that's one of the oldest ballparks, and how could they surround it? Well, the Red Sox have been buying up the real estate surrounding Fenway Park. They've got a plan right now. Is it the Fenway Project, where they're going to basically redo everything, own it all, and kind of have this identical situation? Older buildings, yes, but same type of scenario. The D-backs want this in downtown Phoenix. The Angels want this for their parking lots surrounding Angel Stadium in Orange County. The Rays are trying to do this. They were trying to do this with that proposed stadium in St. Pete. I guarantee you they'll try and do it in Tampa. The Athletics were trying this at Howard Terminal in Oakland for several years. Now, they just couldn't get it done. Everybody else seems to get a lot closer and get it done. Now the A's are going to try and do this in Las Vegas. Now, they don't even own the property surrounding the ballpark, but it's the same idea. Somebody else, imagine that, somebody else is going to get to own the battery type situation surrounding apparently the ballpark that they're building. It's kind of the same way. You wonder if this is the first time something like this has happened. It's really not. If you look at how McDonald's, yes, the fast food chain, how they got so big over the years, it's not just by selling Big Macs and other hamburgers and chicken nuggets and Happy Meals. They did well because McDonald's owns the real estate which their franchises sit on. So not only do they get to franchise out their restaurants, but they also get to own the land that those buildings sit on. And so there's valuation in that over the years and decades. That's how McDonald's got huge, by owning real estate, by owning the real estate that they operate on. And it's the same thing here for Major League Baseball. They not only want to own the stadium and own the rights to things and concession and parking, now they want to own the entire neighborhood and create a good atmosphere for their fans, but also make a lot of money off that. The problem is when you need to control not only the ballpark, but also the surrounding land, it complicates things for new projects, right? Because teams don't just come in anymore and say, hey, like, we want to build just the new stadium right there. Give us 13 acres. We want to build the stadium. That's it. We'll be happy. We'll exist here for 20, 50 years, whatever. We're done. Now a team has to come in and say, well, we need 134 acres. And we not only need to build this stadium, but we also need to build a hotel and a convention center and restaurants and shops and office buildings. And we need to do this in 6 different phases, and it's going to take 25 years. Or they try and slam it all together in 3 years, and it falls apart because it's too big to tackle. It just complicates things when you're no longer trying to build just a ballpark, when you need this entire project to go along with it. Obviously, things get a little bit more intense. But they did it successfully in Atlanta. We now know some of the details of just how successful the battery has been. And this is why every other team in the league, every other ownership group in the league looks at this and says, if we don't already have this, we want that. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Also, thumbs up while you're down there helps me, the video, and the channel. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I would love to see you back here next time.